Okay, let's dive right into this. We are approaching an absolutely incredible milestone for the United States, the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, which is coming up fast on July 4th, 2026. But planning a nationwide celebration of this magnitude, it isn't just about fireworks and parades. It involves a highly complex intersection of historical commemoration, modern politics, and the authentic laws that actually govern our public resources. In this explainer, we are going to unpack the initiatives driven by Donald Trump's administration, the resulting pushback from critics, and the legal frameworks guiding this whole shebang.
It's a fascinating question, right? How exactly does a country navigate the legalities and the sheer politics of a massive historical milestone? When you have billions of dollars, public monuments, national currency, and the attention of the entire globe involved, the stakes are incredibly high. The planning process itself essentially becomes a mirror reflecting the country's current political landscape.
Here is how we'll break this down. First, America's 250th birthday. Then Donald Trump's Freedom 250 plan. Next, the passport controversy, followed by the authentic laws of commemoration, the edifice complex debate, and finally, a divided celebration.
Section 1. America's 250th birthday, setting the legal stage for the semi-quincentennial. So, the legal groundwork for all this actually started years ago. Back in 2016, under the Obama administration, Congress passed the United States Semi-Quincentennial Commission Act. This established a nonpartisan, congressionally backed group called America 250 to oversee the event. But jump ahead to January 2025, and President Donald Trump signed Executive Order 14189. This order created a totally separate White House-led body called Task Force 250, which introduced a whole new dynamic to the 2026 celebrations.
Section 2. Trump's Freedom 250 plan. Two visions for one celebration.
We basically have two primary organizational bodies charting the course for the country right now. On one side, we have the America 250 Commission. Established by Congress, it's designed to be bipartisan, and its traditional focus has been heavily on civic engagement, educational programming, like America's Field Trip, and community volunteering. On the other side, we have the Freedom 250 Task Force. This one is driven directly by the White House and Donald Trump. Based on the sources, Freedom 250 is intensely focused on what are described as splashy events. We're talking things like a proposed Great American State Fair, a UFC fight on the White House lawn, and the Freedom 250 Grand Prix.
Section 3. The passport controversy. Tangible commemoration and bipartisan backlash.
Now, what's really interesting here is the scale of the administration's ambition. The White House has made it crystal clear that they want this to be an unprecedented celebration of American greatness. Donald Trump's enthusiastic vision is focused on elevating the size of the commemoration to truly match the historical gravity of those 56 signatures that started the nation.
But, as you might expect, that specific vision has met with some immediate pushback. Representative Mike Levin highlights a major concern from critics who argue that placing a sitting president's personal branding on public goods crosses a serious line. For sure, they see the introduction of Donald Trump's name and likeness onto standard government items not as patriotism, but as an unprecedented level of self-promotion. And the absolute prime example of this friction? It's the new commemorative passport. To put this into perspective, the State Department is producing 25,000 to 30,000 limited edition passports, available only at the Washington, D.C. Passport Agency. So what makes them so controversial? Well, the traditional image of Francis Scott Key on the inside cover is actually being replaced by an image of Donald Trump. It's superimposed over the Declaration of Independence, complete with his signature embossed in gold. This is literally the first time a living American has ever been featured on the document.
Section 4. Authentic Laws of Commemoration, the legal framework of public resources.
There is a genuinely fascinating piece of history here when it comes to authentic laws. Back during the Civil War, a federal official named Spencer M. Clark actually went ahead and emblazoned his own portrait on a 5-cent fractional currency note. Yeah, Congress was not amused by that at all. In response, they passed an 1866 law that strictly declared it illegal for any living person to appear on government money or bonds of any kind. This was an authentic law put in place specifically to prevent government officials from using public currency as their own personal billboards.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how that 1866 statute interacts with modern legislation, like the Circulating Collectible Coin Redesign Act of 2020. This 2020 Act actually allows the U.S. Mint to redesign circulating coins specifically for the 250th anniversary in 2026. Now, the Trump administration and the Treasury Secretary have proposed a 24-karat gold $1 commemorative coin featuring Donald Trump, the tension here is palpable. You have a 2020 act allowing commemorative redesigns, clashing directly with an authentic law from 1866 that explicitly bans living persons on currency, a move critics say violates America's anti-monarchical ethos.
Section 5. The Edifice Complex Debate. Patriotism versus Personal Branding.
The Cato Institute, which is a public policy think tank, actually has a term for this practice. They call it the edifice complex. This is the phenomenon where politicians engineer the naming of government buildings, public structures, and assets after themselves. Critics strongly associate this practice with moral and political dangers. They argue that it encourages self-dealing, forces taxpayer funding of what are essentially political advertisements, and really blurs the line between public service and self-glorification.
Let's move on and see how this builds out across the administration's plans. Donald Trump's presence is heavily woven throughout the 250th initiatives. The administration's plans include those limited edition passports with his gold signature, national park passes featuring his image, the proposed $1 gold coin, gigantic banners hung on the Departments of Labor and Justice, and the Freedom 250 Freedom Trucks, which prominently feature quotes and videos of the president.
Section 6. A Divided Celebration. Funding and the Future of America's Birthday. And this data point brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact of having two competing visions for the anniversary. According to our sources, $10 million in congressionally authorized funding was actually diverted from the Bipartisan America 250 Commission directly to Freedom 250 to fund their Freedom Trucks exhibit. This diversion of funds has sparked some major concerns among lawmakers regarding the transparency of Freedom 250's structure and whether public money is being appropriately allocated for the celebration.
So as we look toward July 4, 2026, the semi-quinquennial is really shaping up to be a profound reflection of the country today. Between the authentic laws tested by these new initiatives, the sweeping vision of Donald Trump's Freedom 250, and the fierce pushback from critics, it leaves us with a critical question to ponder. When we use public resources to celebrate a nation, where exactly is the line between patriotism and personal branding? Keep that in mind as the 250th approaches. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.